Hello and welcome to the 210th episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter at HawkBlogger. And we have a lot of just breaking news because that is our brand. We are the place where whenever we decide to schedule a podcast, there will be something that happens to the Seahawks that we need to discuss. So we will get into that in a minute. First, let me bring in the fellas. We got a boys club tonight, fearsome foursome. Let's begin with Nathan Ernst, sporting the new do and facial hair. How are you, Nathan?
Good. I think the do has been the same for a while, but yeah, mixed it up with the facial hair. Did it mainly to annoy my wife, and pretty successful there. So,
Are you
That was
going
my next
full?
question.
Are you going full '90s cop? Is that what the plan is?
no. I mean, I would love to try to do some kind of mullet, or with my hairline, it would really be kind of a horseshoe mullet deal. Unfortunately, my hair does not cooperate with me in any way, so it's just whatever this is.
What, you mean like a friar cut kind of thing? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
let's go
saying?
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. I'd be all for that. Yeah, I'm sure your wife would be thrilled.
She'd love it.
That is Nathan Ernst at Nathan11. We will get some more of his thoughts about the Seahawks preseason game one in a moment. But then you heard Evan Hill at Evan Hill HB. Is that what you still are? Yep.
That's what I
Good.
still am.
Awesome, dude. How is life in lovely Arizona?
It's good. There's nothing new. I'm good. I'm excited to be back. It's good to see your faces. I still don't feel like the season is actually approaching, but here we are.
Well, depends on what you mean by the season. I think this whole season is preseason, but like that's a whole nother topic. But last but not least, my brother from another mother wearing the same color like today at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. Jeff, what's going on with you? Are you playing softball tonight? Is your league started yet? What's going on?
No. I was just at home reading Twitter like the rest of us. It's never a boring day to be a Seahawks fan. So there's a lot. I was pretty busy the last couple hours just catching up on everything, and it's never easy for us.
It is not. So let's start with news because there's a lot of news, and we'll go back and we'll talk about preseason game one and some of that other stuff in a second. But I got to start with Drew Lock. I mean, here's a guy who, was pretty highly touted coming out of college, drafted pretty high, fell on his face pretty hard in Denver, became kind of a punchline, I guess, across the league. Got thrown into a deal for one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL and has been used as a punchline when trying to talk shit about the Seahawks since he's been at it, and has generally, by most people's opinions, outplayed Geno Smith through much of training camp, and to some people's eye, in the first game of the season, he was named the starter today. He had the shortest stint as a starting quarterback I've ever seen in the NFL. Did it last an hour?
I don't think so. We should maybe qualify though what name the starter means.
Yes,
I feel like that sounds bigger.
Fill in the blanks for me. I think other people would appreciate that as well.
I believe he was named the starter for the next preseason game. No big announcements about week one of the actual season yet.
Well, Pete went as far as to say Geno is still the number one. He did say so. But yes, and then not more than an hour later, it was tweeted out that Drew Lock, Evan's new favorite Seahawk, has come down with COVID and will miss the game. How do you feel about that, Evan?
Am I gonna regret the words I'm about to say?
Most likely.
Potentially.
Yes.
If I was Drew Lock, I'm fucking hiding that test. I'm hiding that test. This is my opportunity. This is my opportunity. No, this is a bummer. I assume they'll just like. Is it a 5-day waiting period now that they've reduced it to? So in theory, he could start the third preseason game, which wouldn't be the end of the world. But man, I'm so tired and bored of Geno Smith. It's just I want some fun. I want some chaos. And Drew Lock brings that, and it's just a bummer. So I'm sure it'll be fine. But I was really looking forward to seeing Drew Lock play this week.
Remind me of this. You might want to remove this from the internet at your next employment, interview. I don't know that a lot of folks would be pleased to have COVID Evan in the office, but that's just good to know.
Have you guys all had COVID at this point? Because I've had it like 3 times in the past 4 months. I'm just Thanos. I'm collecting different strains. I feel stronger with every infection I get. It's just, I don't know where I'm going with this. Sorry, continue, Brian.
Arizona guy with hot takes on COVID. What a surprise.
I know. The sun is baking brains. Jeff, can you even muster up much of a reaction to this news? Like, what was your reaction to this news?
I couldn't help but laugh. I do feel bad for the guy, and it's just almost funny at this point. And Brian, I'm very much aligned with you on how you're talking. I don't really care who plays quarterback this year at all. And I'm pretty optimistic about a lot that happened in the game, but like to me, these guys are placeholders. And just watching Geno play, like he's fine, but like it's not very exciting. So it's like at least Locke would have been kind of fun to watch. Like you saw some things in the last game, and I want to see how he built off that end of the game nightmare that he had. And again, I don't feel much emotion. That's kind of the beauty of this season. Like everything we talk about, there's a way to rationalize just everything because really the results don't matter, especially at quarterbacks. So not much for me.
Yeah. So Evan, you seem somewhat invested in the quarterback battle. Like the biggest pillow fight in the history of quarterback battles. Nathan, how about you? Like did you watch the first preseason game? Did you get a chance to see it?
Not live, not most of it live, but yeah, I've rewatched it a couple times now.
So did you leave that having, strong feelings about how you wanted the quarterback competition to resolve?
Not really. I don't know what it is about Drew Lock, but there is something like inherently fun about him. Like he just has this kind of chaos ball, goofball. I don't know. He's got a great vibe. Like I don't think he played any better than Geno did, and they played very similarly, I actually think. But it just felt more fun when Drew Lock was out there. So I'm team vibes for this season. So I think I'm leaning Drew Lock right now.
Yeah. I'll admit, like, I definitely, people that were tuned into the live stream, he made a lot of good throws. He made some good decisions. He even made there's some choices he had where he could have tried to drill it in there. He chose to like put some loft under it to get it over a defender. He fit a ball over defender and under defenders into Colby Parkinson's hands, and he couldn't quite hold on in the end zone. He did a lot of good stuff, and he was more fun to watch. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Can I say something else that I might regret?
Always.
Did you guys see Geno Smith's tweeting this past week?
Oh,
very defensive. Very not mad. Geno Smith was extremely not mad.
I'm getting some Justin Britt vibes right now. Searching his name on Twitter, responding to fans, shouting at the sky. It's kind of baby back bitch stuff. And honestly, it's a little annoying.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't think it's a great look. I think that act like you've been there and don't feel like you need to justify your position. I think he's done all these good things about I will always have Drew Lock's back. He's been positive about Drew Lock from the beginning, and he's in more of a position of power. I thought those were all good things, but then I don't know, man.
Jackson Knight in the chat said that Gino is tweeting like a wide receiver, not a quarterback, which is extremely accurate.
Yeah.
Too deep in the comments. Yeah.
It's just
I mean, what are you doing, Gino? I mean, Gino is really a lot of it is it's hard to really separate these two guys because they're so mediocre, but like Gino is a more boring mediocre.
Yeah.
And so,
I don't even know if that's true. I just think there's something about Drew Lock where we just don't know what to like. I never know if this is going to be the play where he gets strip sacked and loses the ball, right? Like there is, so I don't think like the element, the vibe is actually good with Lock, but it somehow is. Like again, I don't think Lock played particularly well. I didn't chart it all, but I'd guess something like 75% of his yardage in that game was yards after the catch. And I so part of it was just hitting guys in the flat that happened to have a long runway in front of them as opposed to Gino not. So but it's just a little bit more wild card with him out there.
And I cringe every time I hear this, but I hate to compare the season to other Seahawks seasons because that whole first couple of years is not repeatable. But just Nathan talking about that, it really is T-Jack and Whitehurst all over again. Like Charlie, the good vibes guy, like you had no idea what you're getting. You kind of hoped he played, but he sucked. And T-Jack and Gino were so similar. Like they just kind of did what was in front of them. And there was just nothing exciting about them. And it's so much. Unfortunately, it's going to be a tough year to watch, but it's so similar.
Well, we were violating all of my rules. We've spent way too much time talking about these two. But it was necessary given the Drew Lock storyline for this Thursday. So Geno Smith, I assume, will start. Maybe we'll get some more Jacob Eason. I don't know. I don't know what other option they'd have. Other news that came out today. I think Abe Lucas ran with the starters all day today.
Kern didn't practice today.
What's that?
Jake Kern didn't practice.
Yeah, Kern didn't practice, so that's a good note. Gabe Jackson ran with the starters all day today. Phil Haynes did not. Come back to that, as you know. D. Eskridge did not practice. I don't want to shock any of you. D. Eskridge did not practice. Now, I got some flack on Twitter for calling Eskridge out and saying like it's time to get on the field. And, am I questioning whether he's really injured? And that's all honestly fair. And I usually am very, I don't know, I try to be like understanding about what's going on with these guys. I'm just pretty frustrated about the Eskridge situation is what it comes down to. I'm frustrated that we didn't get much out of him last year. He was out for like after the first game for like weeks with that concussion. And then when he came back, he wasn't much of an impact. And then he comes back here. He's had a whole offseason. He comes to camp with what was supposedly a minor hamstring injury and can't practice for what is it going on like 3 weeks now? Like, I come back to what we said at the beginning. I just have a real hard time like believing that Jermaine Kearse and Doug Baldwin and Sidney Rice and, a bunch of these other guys never had tight hamstrings and played through it in practice anyway. Like, I don't know. I feel like at some point Eskridge it feels like he is approaching his pro career like he's a second round pick who's a made man. And I just want to see something. And whenever he comes back, I hope he's healthy. I hope he stays healthy. But I don't know. I think it's pretty frustrating at this point. Other thing I'll bring up, and then we'll move on a little bit. The Seahawks traded Ugo Amadi for one of the guys picked ahead of DK Metcalf in the draft.
Wasn't there some idiot on this podcast like hyping him up like 2 weeks ago?
How did you know I was going to ask you about that?
Names rhymes with Kevin, something like that. Yeah.
How did you feel about that, Evan?
I was also kind of shocked they cut him were planning to cut him so early. I know there was like, rumors and we had discussion that he might not make the roster, but for him to be cut this early, that's like I had a buddy text me and he was like, do Justin Coleman and Marquise Blair look that good? And I'm like, probably not. It might just be Ugo sucking that bad. He's had kind of a weird career arc. Like I remember when he started his rookie year, he flashed and we were impressed with him, but he's really fallen off a cliff and apparently is no longer valuable to this team. So whatever. Hope he catches on in Philly, but it was a little surprise in terms of how early it was for me.
My guess on that is that they were trying to find him a landing spot and give him a few weeks of camp with the team before they cut him, because he's not like first wave of cuts bad. So he's a backup, NFL player, and so this gives him kind of a shot to really stick with the team.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that was my read as well.
Justin Coleman was awful in this game. Did anyone else like pick up on that? I mean, I even if he's old, he shouldn't be making like things that are like bad reasons. He's not even that old, right? Like, it's weird to me.
Late 20 or early 30. Right. No, I think really it's a couple things. Ugo was pretty bad last year. I think his PFF grade was like 43 or something. But more importantly, I think
the worst cornerback in the NFL last year, according to PFF.
Yeah, and I think really it's more about how the team views the nickel spot. And I think the fact that Kobe Bryant is playing some nickel, I think they're just running different coverages, and I think they're running a lot more man coverage out of the nickel spot. And Ugo is a zone player, and I think he was a backup safety, and I think Josh Jones emerged as well. So that kind of made him just completely expendable. And if they're asking the nickel to play man, Ugo just doesn't fit at all.
Agreed. I don't know. Is there any other news that came out today that
yeah. Oh, that was sarcasm. I literally couldn't tell.
Please. Who would like to break it? Jeff?
No, the running back man should.
For one of you two. I think it's got to come from even Nathan.
I want Nathan breaking the news on this.
I don't take any joy in injuries.
Did you guys I'm going to go on a real quick 30-second tangent. Did you guys see that viral video that went off like in the past 24 hours about those news reporters reporting on like their children pooping their diapers or something like that, but in a reporter voice? Did you guys see that?
No, Evan. We run in different internet circles.
Okay, whatever. Continue. Break the news, Nathan.
I want to know how that was going to be relevant.
Yeah, you bring it home.
I wanted you to break the news in sort of like a news reporter voice, but for this running back situation.
No, I thought you were going though.
All right. Well, let's kick it over to Evan then for sports and the latest on Seahawks injury reports. Give you a shot at it.
I'm not an actor, bro. This is all you.
You please help.
There is one person listening to us right now that's on the edge of their seat. Like, who's fucking hurt? Who's hurt? It's Kenneth Walker. He has a hernia. It's probably fine. Who knows with Pete? They're holding him out for a little bit.
Yeah, they said hopefully he'll be ready for the regular season.
Is that something that requires surgery?
Sports hernias often require surgery.
If it's a sports hernia, it's usually surgery 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, Marshawn had one and was out like a good chunk of a season.
I'm sure that there are a wide variety of, severities of these. So who knows?
There's a variety of hernias out there. But for running backs, it's a particularly dicey injury. Lateral movements and pushing off and all that kind of stuff can be really tough. So it may or may not. We don't know. All we heard was the word hernia. We don't know what kind of hernia it will be and how severe. So we'll wait on that. Okay, let's get to talking about the game and impressions. I would love to hear your thoughts about the game. Like, what stood out to you guys? And Jeff, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's funny. If you asked me like my opinion of the Seahawks on Saturday versus today, it would have been remarkably different. But for me, if you remember last week on the show, when we were talking, we said the number one thing we're looking for. And to me, it was the 2 offensive tackles. And they way exceeded what I thought they would look like. Just as like, I know the competition wasn't great. Pittsburgh didn't play TJ Watt or Cam Hayward or any of their really first thing. But Cross just looked like an NFL left tackle right off the bat. And Lucas shocked me how ready he was, because I didn't think he'd be that good of a run blocker and that physical. right off the bat. So for me, it was those two and Boye Mafe, just how you can see just how quickly they're adapting. And you remember like Frank Clark, when he played in the preseason, he looked dominant. And then in the regular season, he sort of disappeared his rookie year. So taking everything with a grain of salt, but just seeing how comfortable those tackles looked and just seeing the like overall grading and overall just flying colors they got, to me, that just jumped off the page. That was the biggest takeaway by far for me.
Nathan, how about you? What were the one or two things that really jumped out to you?
Yeah, offensive line was a big thing. I think seeing the offense look a little Ramsey was kind of cool. And seeing Bell Melton and some of these guys make plays with the ball in their hand and get a lot of yak was pretty cool. It looks a little, it didn't look too, it's still pretty vanilla, obviously, but they were creating a lot of things like, you've seen the Rams and you'd expect Shane Waldron to create. So I thought that was cool. Yeah, I think the feeling I get is that people came away from the game pretty positive. I mostly didn't, but a whole bunch of backups and guys in there that hopefully won't play very much during the season. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's hard to come away from that game feeling positive about the defense for sure.
Mhm.
The coverage was awful. Secondary in general was bad. Linebacker play, I don't think, was very good. Tackling was awful across the board. There was a decent pass rush. But like, I think if you're watching the defense, I don't think there was a lot to be particularly excited about. I think there's a fair number of things on offense that were pretty positive. The offensive line in general, like, was a big thing. But before I've already talked a bunch about the preseason game with other folks. Evan, how about you? Anything that jumped off the page for you?
Yeah, I know you didn't like him too much in your post-game article, but to add on to what the gents said on the offensive side of the ball, I actually thought Kenneth Walker was relatively impressive, and it was on one specific play. If you guys remember, he was like thrown to the left side of the field and he dodged like 2 or 3 defenders, and the first defender met him in space. I think like it was like a 1st and 10, I think, or maybe a 2nd and 10. And the first defender met him 3 yards in, and it ended up being like an 11, 12-yard gain. I know that's not like a super flashy, sexy play, but seeing him in space and being able to dodge those defenders and, just get extra yardage out of it, it's just encouraging to see a player like that maybe actually make an impact at the running back position. Because if he's dangerous in space and he can, add to the offense, via pass catching, that's a big deal. So yeah, it's just one play, nothing to get super excited about or anything like that. But seeing him in space was fun.
I'm challenged a little bit because I feel like there was the second string and even third string offensive line in some ways seemed to outperform the first string offensive line in terms of, and that might have been because of the competition they're going up against. I don't know. But Travis Homer looked like a world beater. DJ Dallas looked like a world beater. Would Ken Walker have ripped off those runs if he was in those same situations? Maybe, but I don't know. So that's the part that you obviously would hope to get some more film, more opportunity to see him play to judge. But like, yeah, I was not super impressed.
And if you went on like some of the other like fantasy sites and some of the league wide, a lot of people seem to fall in Evans' camp, which was interesting because there was a lot of people who liked more his running style, and not that anything he did, he just looked different athletically. But yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to get to see that film. He's not going to play the rest of the preseason now.
Yeah.
So
I agree with Brian. I didn't think he looked particularly impressive, and who knows how much of that is the hernia. I doubt that popped up overnight. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the shine that Drew Lock has on him is probably in large part thanks to DJ Dallas, who really played well, I thought. And one big thing to take away from the game for sure is, it's one preseason game, so don't put a ton of stock into this, but they averaged over 0.2 EPA in the running game, which is kind of in line with where they were at the end of last season. So if there's a question about, how is that historic run game going to translate from the back half of last year to this year? So far, so good.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely a few runs where I thought Rashad Penny in that moment would have housed it, like
Mm-hmm.
based on who
One
he
where
was.
Travis Homer ran into his own guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't you dare disparage Seattle's best running back. Don't you dare.
You know who I like, who stood out to me just because I hadn't seen enough of him before was Derek Young. Like I know Bo Melton had like the big splashy 39-yard play, but one like Young from just like an athlete perspective is impressive. The guy's like cut like granite. He's 6'2", 25. Like he's a big dude. And he moves pretty well. And I thought he ran decent routes and he showed some decent hands, caught some pass in, a contested catch for a touchdown. He didn't have huge numbers or anything. And I'm not like, oh, this guy's the next great thing. But for a 7th round pick, like he's also a guy that ran like, what is it? The offense he ran in college where he's basically running end arounds all the time.
Veer, yeah.
Yeah, the veer, right. Like he's basically a running back. So like he's just an interesting dude. I don't know what's gonna happen with him, but I like it. I like what he brings a little bit more than like Melton's also interesting. But people were talking about like, is Freddie Swain in danger of getting cut? I think the Seahawks really like Freddie Swain. I'm kind of curious. Did any of you think like Freddie Swain is at risk, like that Bo Melton and Derek Young and D. Eskridge if he ever comes back, and Thega Whiteside and whatever, like, are they all gonna jump Swain? Anybody?
I mean, probably not J-Job, but I think they could. I think some of these other guys could. It's just a question. I mean, Swain is really, really hard to evaluate as a fan, especially without any kind of all 22, because he's more of a technician. And so understanding all of the coaching notes on different routes against different types of defense, like it's hard to know. And so depending on how much he's excelling at that and, just being like the Bobby Ingram, always in the right place type of guy. I mean, Bo Melton and Young, and if Eskridge can get on the field, I mean, those dudes are dangerous with the ball in their hand, and this offense is going to create those opportunities. So it wouldn't surprise me if Swain does end up being in some kind of trouble.
Interesting. So I don't think we talked enough about the offensive line. Like the Seahawks offensive line has been horseshit for a long time. Like it's been bad, and it's also been old. And it's been like reclamation projects, and it's been guys that we've like pulled off the street, even guys that worked out like Brandon Shell were like not necessarily long-term, building blocks price wise.
No.
Say what you will, like absolutely all caveats, preseason, doesn't matter, it's PFF rankings, blah 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 blah. The Seahawks have the number 1 ranked pass blocking offensive line and the number 5 ranked run blocking offensive line in the entire NFL in week 1 of the preseason. I would bet you we could go back through all PFF and never have had any single week where the Seahawks offensive line had those kind of ranks across the NFL. Like, and it happened to Jeff, to your point, these were like young dudes. Like, other than Blythe, like everybody was young.
Yeah, and that's the thing that excites me really the most about this whole season. I mentioned in the first show we had, and I haven't got mad at me. I mentioned it last week again. To me, the biggest thing, and one of the things I've just hated about the way they built their team in like the last years of Russell Wilson, is they had no sustainable position groups. Everything was just kind of patched together. I don't know if that's because they screwed up in the draft so much. I don't know if that was their weird free agency approach, but this is the first time, like if you looked at the roster when what it looked like coming out of the season, like they had almost no potential long-term starters unless like Haynes or Lewis. Now with the thing that's so exciting is these guys are sustainably built. If you can have 2 tackles coming out of this year and these guys can play, and then that's why I'm in your camp, Brian. I don't think that Haynes should be playing center, but I think Haynes should be playing guard over Gabe Jackson based on where this team is. So if you can have potentially 4 and get even Lewis having a plus pass pro game, to me, that's encouraging because he's been a terrible pass blocker in the NFL.
I thought Lewis looked pretty good in that game. I mean, Evan, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Jeff had just said something like, for whatever reason, we drafted good offensive line this year, whatever. When are we gonna credit Jody Allen?
Say more.
When are we gonna credit her for stepping in and per rumors, forcing their hands a little bit, changing their strategy, their drafting strategy up a little bit, forcing John's feet to the fire, making sure that there's a real, sort of analytical based, roster construction strategic approach to their draft selections instead of just, gut instinct, he's going to be good. I think
I had a different read of that. I mean, you might be right. I'm wondering if the biggest thing we got from the Rams was Andy Dickerson.
His hair's amazing.
I mean, he's fantastic. But like we've talked about a million times, that generally the front office that is looking for personnel based on what the coaches are asking for. Like what are the characteristics they're after, and they're a big part of the scouting of these players. And then to Nathan's point, we were starting to see this team block in a certain way at the end of last year, and the scheme kind of come together. I'm wondering if we may have backed our way into like the next great offensive line coach. Like, don't know. Like, it's a huge projection. But if you look at who we've drafted, how they've started to perform, and the results we're starting to see, I don't know. Like, he might be our next head coach at some point. I don't know. Sleeper.
The worst part is, imagine this group with Creed Humphrey, what they would be projecting like.
Oh, fuck off, dude.
I'm sure I was saying though, they would project as like a top 3 line next year.
They would be the best line in football, like within a few years. Like,
yeah, right now with those 4 guys potentially, that's a pretty good long-term group. They really just need to fill one spot. But man, that run hurts.
All right, I was trying to save my drink for the next hour, Jeff. Can we
I'm just trying to troll Brian a little bit.
Okay. You know what the untold story of Real Hawk Talk is?
What's that?
The most absolute obscene fucking chats that happen during this show that the audience never sees. And
this
whenever
is the one that we're going to talk about now, I make one little joke, and now this is the one we're going to finally talk about.
No. Speaking of coaches for a second, I do have to change the subject because someone in chat brought this up, a different chat. If coverage was the thing that we all agreed was bad, is there anyone that's worried about Sean Desai and Carl Scott as the guys that are brought in to own the secondary? Jeff looked like I just shoved a.
That's a crazy question. One,
why?
Quandre and Jamal weren't playing, and Jamal's not a good cover, but Quandre is a huge part of the scheme.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 corners were playing. I've never played in the NFL before. One of them is a super raw player. He's looked good in training camp, but if Sidney Jones, Artie Burns, Quandre, and Jamal were out there and looked like that, sure. But you have to expect a pretty big learning curve from the corners. As much as they've been good and you want to see signs. I said on the show last week, it's going to look a lot different going up against Pittsburgh's receivers. And I don't know. I think to make any sort of assumption or hot take from that game would be nuts.
We've lost Evan. Cody Barton, guys.
You're wrong about Cody Barton.
Tell
We're
me
going to
why
fight
I'm
about
wrong.
it.
Tell me what I missed.
He looked fine. He was fine.
Why? How do you come to that?
He was fine. I didn't really see. I mean, he had the penalty. I didn't
tackles,
see
the blown coverages.
I don't think. So here's the thing. It was a little tough to tell one white linebacker from another out there. But when they had the Nick Bellore, Cody Barton, Tanner Muse trio, I don't know. I didn't see missed tackles. I mean, maybe I missed them, but Bellore was terrible. But other than that,
he was awful. I was watch Nick Bellore look better than Cody Barton, and then he proceeded to look way worse. He
Right.
looked awful. There's been times that Ballore came in and actually has looked like a decent linebacker. That was not the game. He was terrible. Jordan Brooks, you mentioned Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams being out, but like Jordan Brooks, I think, has become a critical part of this defense. I don't know that they have another middle, like inside linebacker that belongs on an NFL field, like on any regular basis. So,
I mean, I think with Barton, like he looked fine, and maybe that's actually an indictment to say when he is going to be the starter and he's playing against backups and stuff, right? But like Barton to me looks like quality depth, a good spot starter. He's probably a guy that they're going to try to upgrade over starting next year. But I don't think he's a problem or a massive black hole or he's terrible or something like that.
I still don't get why. I mean, we're paying Jason Myers to boink like field goals, like, and that money could be going to that could have brought in an upgraded linebacker. It's not hard to find an upgraded inside linebacker. Like, I don't get it.
How many missed kicks did Jason Myers have on last preseason game?
Sucks so bad.
How many missed kicks?
He sucks so bad.
What was the end result?
We pay him like $1 million per missed kick, like per week. Like, I mean, it's crazy how many. That's how much he makes. You didn't.
Jason Myers is top 10 on the Seahawks' highest paid roster.
I know. It's fucking it's ridiculous.
He's number 9.
Oh my god.
And he almost missed the other kick as well.
Just wait for that extension, baby. It's coming.
Oh god.
No, you guys think I'm kidding. I think he
don't.
might get extended.
I think he might.
I don't think you're wrong. That's why
Like-
I'm upset.
It's very possible.
I can handle it if Phil Haynes starts, but otherwise I will be livid. I will probably be livid either way.
Can they extend that KJ Ray 1-day contract? They might need some inside linebackers.
Seriously, I mean, people keep talking about Roquan Smith.
No.
Like, is anybody like Jeff? You and I talked about this, but this is not the year. This is not the team, and that's not the position to go bring in like trade draft picks to go get an all-pro inside linebacker and pay him like $20 million a year, $18 million a year. Like, I think I love Roquan Smith, but like that just makes no sense based on where we are. Like, I would, given all the things I've said, I would rather start Cody Barton than trade away draft picks and pay Roquan Smith like that much money. So, okay, Nathan, do you have the Patreon questions?
I do. Yeah.
Awesome.
Real quick, I actually have a question. Do we have any update on Jamal's hand? Is he just choosing to wear the club all year?
I thought so, how long he's going to wear it.
Okay. God, that's annoying. Whatever.
I mean, it just reduces any expectation of him ever catching a pick. So, other than that, he can be largely the same player. Someone's saying club for the whole year. I can't confirm that, but that's what someone in chat's saying. All right, let's do some Patreon questions.
Okay, so piggybacking off of the linebacker discussion, Perry wants to know if there's going to be a linebacker move coming. I think we're all in agreement that it won't be Roquan Smith, but do you see them, doing something to add to the position, maybe some kind of low-level trade or something like that?
Who are you directing that to?
You.
Me.
Yeah, you.
Me. So was it Vi Jones?
Mm-hmm.
He had a good, obviously, first game. I don't know that he's going to do enough to have them to unseat someone that's been a veteran. I do think that they will do one of those before the final day of cuts or right up into it. I think that they will make a trade for a guy that's probably going to be cut from another team. Linebackers are not hard to find. Inside linebackers are not hard to find. So I think they'll add someone in that regard. One of the things that's a shame, it is a long shot for most people, but I really liked Lakeem Williams. I thought he flashed a little bit last year in camp, and he's been injured all camp. So I was bummed that he's not getting a shot. But yeah, I think they will make a move, but I think it'll be that kind of move.
Gotcha. Braxton wants to know, at the moment, it seems like top 5 wide receivers are set in Metcalf, Lockett, Goodwin, Eskridge, and Swain. Which of the 2 rookie wide receivers in Melton are young are your favorite to make the roster at wide receiver 6? We talked about this a little bit. Jeff, do you agree that those top 5 are set? And if you had to pick between one of them, who are you picking?
I do not agree those top 5 are set. One, Eskridge has not been able to practice. 2, Goodwin's hurt, and he was kind of looped in today with Walker, and they're hoping to get him ready for the openers. So if they have 2 guys who can't get on the field, I don't know if one of those guys makes the team. And then there's that sort of weird buzz that Swain has been struggling in camp. I think both Young and Melton are going to make the team. I think Brady Henderson reported that behind the scenes, the team's high on both. But I think if it's going to be one, it's more likely to be Derek Young. I think he's more of a unique physical profile.
Can I ask before you move off of that, why is Goodwin a lock?
Yeah, that was the part that was most surprising of that question to me.
But people are talking, like media is talking about that like that way too. What has he done that in his career that makes him like even?
He runs fast. That's it.
Which is really all you can say for some of these other guys too, like Bo Melton and Derek Young. They also run fast.
Yeah, I think he's played in the Shanahan scheme before, and he runs fast. But he's an older player on a team that's trying to develop core pieces for the future. To me, it's to block players for a guy like him. To me, is kind of redundant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the chances that Melton and Young are anything is pretty slim. But yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to me to put someone like Goodwin ahead of him.
Is there something happening there? Like I've heard little things that in press conferences where players talk about the quick game more than they've talked about it in past years. Is there potential? You also talked about this in terms of Drew Lock's performance, Nathan. Are we seeing like part of this offense is going to be getting the ball in space to fast, small receivers and letting them run? Like, is that going to be a profile of a receiver that's a little bit more than we've seen in the past?
I think so. Yeah, I think absolutely. Because then there's the whole end around game, and like they try to do that with Lockett, but that hasn't been his thing in a long time. It's not really DK's thing. As good as he can be in the open field with the ball, he's not gonna, turning the corner and all that's not really his deal either. And so, yeah, they need some guys like that.
Yeah, like Eskridge, Melton, Goodwin, at least all fit that kind of mold, right?
Yeah, I mean, Goodwin though isn't like Eskridge and Young, and to a lesser degree Melton are kind of running back esque, and Goodwin's just kind of twiggy and like he's not you don't want him trying to like break tackles or anything. I don't think so.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, we have a lot of overlap on the questions with what we already talked about. Z-Ray asked, I think probably the one thing that we haven't talked about a lot at this point is, do you feel the value of special teams changes with the huge change in offense? And who will benefit more statistically, Dixon or Myers? Evan, of course, this one, Myers related, is coming to you. So
I guess I don't really understand the question. What do they mean?
I don't know. I guess maybe because the offense is going to be a lot worse without Russ. Does special teams become more important, or
are you get more field goals or more?
Yeah. Well, Pete has always relied on Michael Dixon very heavily. So if you have a punter position in a fantasy football league or something, then maybe Michael Dixon is a good bet. But I think that probably means Jason Myers will get more opportunities. It's an interesting question, though. It's a good opportunity for Jason to earn that extension this year. That's all I answer that.
And John Hurlbut wants to know, when is it happening? When is the Myers extension happening, Evan?
It's so Jason Myers is going to hit a game-winning field goal against the Denver Broncos, and before week 2 games start, he will have signed a 4-year extension, $22 million.
Are the Seahawks going to go 1-16, and their one win is going to be against Russell?
Yeah,
I would be very okay with that.
That'd be so funny.
That's it. That's all the patrons got.
Okay. What did you guys make of speaking of Russ, of the trade, the tight end we got, Noah Fant? What did you make of him in his first game?
How does he not get his foot down? How does he not get his foot down there?
Thank you.
That was
Get out. I don't want anything to do with you. Like, that is such a, like, every receiver makes that toe tapping. Cornerbacks make that toe tap. And I know it's not like a toe tap thing. It wasn't like, one of those balls he's falling out of bounds or whatever, but like, get your fucking, what are you doing? You're a professional. Like, get your foot down.
It was
made me so
almost
mad.
like he was like treating it like the end zone, like he was striding to try to reach it as opposed to to avoid it, to come up short of it.
It's a very silly thing for me to be so mad about until like I will never think of Noah Fant the same way. My judgment towards him has been forever altered. Like the Overton window of my perception of him, it swung wildly. And that's probably dumb, but get your foot down. Like, come on.
The whole point of the preseason to make these dumb evaluations.
That's true.
I've gotten some weird vibes from him though. Like, he hasn't really come out. He hasn't really flashed in a lot of like training camp reports, and like he's trying to hype up Drew Lock. Like, he's so excited to keep his career with Drew Lock when all his old teammates get to play with Russell now, and like he's kind of expected to be like their third weapon, this big part of the trade, and he's kind of been dead silent. And seeing what Nathan said, I had the same reaction. I was kind of pissed off, like to an reasonable level, and I don't know. I'm getting weird vibes from him so far.
That's part of why I brought it up, because I was like, did anyone else get that annoyed by that play?
Absolutely.
Got the answer I was looking for.
Well, I was convinced he got his foot down. I was like, there's no way he didn't before the replay came, because it was a legitimate length of space.
Yeah.
I was actually laughing at, there was a Steeler on the sideline who was going like, no catch. I'm like, haha, yeah, everyone knows that was a catch. And then, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, that was
Is Colby Parkinson going to get cut?
No.
You think he's a lock?
I think he's a lock. Yeah. Disley didn't play, did he? Right?
I don't think so.
They put a bubble wrap around their expensive tight end.
Oh my god, I forgot how much they paid him. Holy shit. Was that this off season?
Article, right?
Was that this off season?
Yeah.
No,
Jesus
the
Christ.
article was painful. Yeah,
That was like one of Russell's like parting gifts, was like,
Wait, what
hard,
article?
like recruiting Disley and trying to get the Broncos to sign him.
the Broncos were gonna like pay him the same money, and
they drove up the price, and that's why. You didn't read that article?
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, there was like
Broncos were
multiple
chasing him.
teams.
apparently like there was like 5 teams in on him.
Everybody likes the big blocking tight
It was
end.
weird. He was like, I was ready to leave. My agent told me we were leaving Seattle to go to Denver, and then they matched the offer, and it was bizarre.
That might be the worst contract on the Seahawks.
Might be.
You-
Well,
you
Jamal,
may-
no, Jamal's
Jamal is
Yeah.
right now, but what are they going to do with the $15 million in cap space that they've got right now?
roll it.
They're gonna roll that bitch over to
Yeah.
next year when they extend Jimmy Garoppolo after a positive second half of the 2022 year.
Yeah, with Drew Lock on COVID, it could be a good opportunity to add another quarterback.
Do you guys think, if it's sounding like, I mean, depending on who you believe, that it's imminent that they will cut Jimmy Garoppolo at some point?
Well, they're gonna have to in the next couple weeks
Because, like, is it September 10th or something like that?
he's on the roster
his
by a
contract.
Tuesday of week 1. His $26 million is guaranteed, so they're not gonna do that.
What are your odds about whether the Seahawks pick him up if he's cut?
I've said it a million times. The worst possible outcome for the Seahawks this year, and Brian's gonna hate me, is they win somewhere between 7 and 10 games
I don't hate
and
you.
barely. It's okay. It's okay. You
I
can
don't
say
hate
it.
you.
They barely miss. They barely make the playoffs. None of that bullshit. Embrace the tank. Get me a high pick next year.
That's not the question. Answer the question. What's the odds, regardless of how you feel about it, that the Seahawks
Oh.
pick up Jimmy Garoppolo?
We can bring back Jimmy Graham too.
Uh,
We know that was your favorite trade. I think there's a reasonable chance it happens. Yeah. They can afford to pay him a little bit.
Expect them to pick up Garoppolo if he became available.
Like 25% chance.
Oh, that's not expecting. That's like, okay. Nathan, how about you?
I'm trying to think of where else he might go. If you're Jimmy Garoppolo, where?
Porn.
Okay.
I mean, he's already got a foot in the door.
Does he?
Was he dating some porn star or something
Oh,
like
okay.
that? I feel like he was.
Anyways,
Yeah.
foot might not have been what he had in the door there, but yeah, sure.
Steelers, maybe?
No, because they're not gonna. They won't pick him over Trubisky. They won't pay him, and they have Pickett. It's like it's the Browns.
That's what I was gonna say.
Ooh.
New Orleans. If Peyton was still in New Orleans, I would maybe think that. But like, so I just if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, you want a chance to play. I mean, you would probably come to Seattle on next to nothing just for the opportunity, right?
So what are your odds? Like, what do you think the likelihood is?
I think it's probably like 50-50.
I was gonna say if he's cut, I think it's 50%. If there's a trade, I think the Browns are the team. If Watson gets suspended for the year, they might get more desperate. But the Jets, like Zach Wilson got hurt. They have all these old 49ers coaches, and they're like, no, we don't want to touch this guy. So there's just no one really left. Even Houston wants Davis Mills.
And Houston doesn't want to win. I mean, there's no
Belichick. Would Belichick bring him back as a backup?
As a backup, sure. But if you're trying to decide between like going to New England as a backup behind Mac Jones or going and trying and being a backup behind Drew Lock, if you just want to play, I mean, I think you go to.
Yeah, and he probably wants to give it to the Niners a little bit. So
Dana called out the Giants.
Yeah, because Daniel Jones looks like
have Tyrod Taylor though, sort of.
I think the odds are lower than most people think. I think that the Seahawks believe in Geno Smith more than people want them to.
I think likely that is the case.
I believe that the Seahawks will shock a lot of people if Jimmy G is available, that they will roll with Geno Smith. And it might take till like week 4. If Jimmy G somehow is still available and Geno is like crap in the bed and Drew Lock has his like 4th COVID,
we got like a screenshot of Evan's face right now.
It's just so cringeworthy. It's just.
Well, it is. You're saying embrace the tank.
Right.
You're talking out of both sides of your mouth here.
Actually, I think I agree with you though, because there's 2 quarterbacks here in Seattle. So I think Seattle's bought into one of these guys. I think it's maybe Locke, but either way, I think they're comfortable. If one of them craps the bed after starting, that they'll go to the other one. And I guess if you're Jimmy G, what you really want to do is just sit tight until somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, that's my guess. Yeah, I don't think he's going to end up here. Part of it is because I really don't want him to end up here, but I also
I agree with that. Though I think it's the worst.
I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
I think it's the worst move they can make because getting from like 6 to 8 wins or something for a marginal upgraded quarterback, to me, that's just almost defeats the point. And you know what Jimmy G is at this point.
God, someone earlier in the chat said they should have traded Ugo for Gardner Minshew, which would have been that would be so fun.
Okay, but counterpoint.
Yeah.
What if we sign Jimmy G and beat the Niners with him?
No,
it's great for you.
The Niners
would,
with him.
Would that content be worth it? Maybe.
Do you really think the Niners fans would care that much more that he beat them? Like, is there that much invested in him?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stress about Trey Lance there.
It would trigger the fuck out of them, 100%.
I know that.
I know that fan base very well.
What if Drew Lock beats them, and then we can talk about how we have the better young quarterback?
Point. Would that be that much?
That's a good point. That's good trolling material. Yeah.
I mean, if either Geno Smith or Drew Lock beat anybody, that whole fan base, whoever they are, is going to be devastated. They are going to be like burning jerseys. Like week after week, that's going to be our season this year. Anytime the Seahawks win, we are going to see like jerseys getting burned from the opposing fans because they're so pissed off.
Guys, I saw like quarterback rankings over the past couple of weeks, and it just blows my mind how high they're ranking Trey Lance. Like, I get it's in the low 20s, but that guy should be bottom 3, bottom 4. Like, I might take Drew Lock over him this year,
Here's
1-1.
the thing, though, with Trey Lance is that he's gonna make plays every week. He's gonna break a run. He's gonna connect on a big throw. He's got Debo Samuel. He's got Ayuk. He's got like George Kittle. So he can be like a crap quarterback who just kind of like pops, and he can have some games where he's gonna. A lot of times he'll be like 12 for 27, but like 3 of those passes are for touchdowns. So I think that the Niners are talented enough, and I think that the coaching staff's good enough. The main thing with Lance, I think, is going to be turnovers. Like he could be a guy that's like good for 2 turnovers a game, and that's the thing that I wonder about with him. But I don't know. If he had shown no propensity for big plays, I'd be right there with you. But he has shown some of that.
There's just a very high chance in my mind that season completely ends up in a dumpster fire for the Niners.
There would be nobody happier if that happened.
I really think it's going to happen.
I mean, their whole franchise is screwed.
It's dependent on him completely. They traded the farm.
Like, who's their backup after Jimmy G?
Alex McGee.
Shut.
Is it really?
No.
Oh,
But it should be.
now I'm curious.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
Nate.
Wait,
Nate
Oh, yeah,
Sudfeld?
Was that the guy like the Eagles tanked with to lose the game? They threw him in.
I think so.
Oh boy, if Lance can't play, they're in trouble.
Anything else? We've managed not to talk about Russ too much, so I'll probably keep it that way. Is there anything else that across the league or other things you guys want?
Who the hell did we play this week?
The Bears.
The least interesting roster in the whole league.
Yeah.
If you think we're fucked, like look at that depth chart. They have nothing.
We'll get a chance to see the Seahawks quarterback of the future, though. Justin Fields, if he plays.
Hey, I kind of like Justin Fields. Don't talk shit about him.
I think he's if this team is not going to tank, and I don't think they are going to tank, and they end up in like a 7 or 8 wins, and they're looking to get a quarterback, and they can't get up to get one of the top ones, I would be surprised if they flip something for Justin Fields.
Yeah, I don't know if I see that, but
I
don't know. That Bears team is rough.
They're putting him in a bad situation.
I'm gonna say they're putting him in a bad situation. They don't seem too concerned about building around him.
That's a good point.
No O-line, no receivers.
It's true. No, it's true. Yeah, I think those are all the topics I had in mind. Anything, Jeff, that we're missing?
Yeah, I think Boye Mafe looked pretty cool. I don't know if we really talked about him.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I don't know. There's much to say. He flashed on 2 or 3 plays, but
What do you
looked.
think, like, in your like most optimistic projection for Boye Mafe? What kind of player is he?
Like this year or in the future?
In the future, like what's his ceiling?
I think he's a secondary 6 to 8 sack guy.
Cliff Averill type, maybe.
That drives people
Pro
crazy. I don't think
Bowler.
he moves like Cliff, but
10 to 13.
I don't think he's the 1A pass rusher, but I think he can be a very good secondary rusher who just his movement and just his athleticism when he chased down Pickett, and that looked pretty impressive to me.
Still need to see him bend the corner better, though.
Yeah, agreed.
Still not seeing the bend from him.
No,
Yeah,
the
he's a
Cliff
fast
Averill
dude.
is weird.
I saw him though put his hands in the chest of the tackle and drive him back into the quarterback. He's not a huge guy, so that was nice to see.
Baldy was talking in that video how good his hands were for. I think that's encouraging sign.
Yeah, I mean, he flashed enough for me to be like, okay, like feel better about him in the second round. Has some potential to contribute.
Yeah, he's what a 2nd round pass rusher looks like.
Yeah. I am kind of curious about Tyreek Smith. I know he's been out with hip, and it seems like he'll probably just stay out with. He has not multiple hip injuries, but the reports were pretty positive of him when he was on the field for them. But it's a shame that we haven't seen him. Otherwise, Has everybody in the draft shown some promise? Right? Like Cross. Nathan and I aren't huge believers in Ken Walker so far, but it's very minor amount of info. Mafe we've talked about. Lucas. God, he had a great game. He looks so good. He might be better than Cross. Not like he couldn't play left tackle necessarily, but he might end up being a better right tackle than Cross as a left tackle. I mean, I don't know. That was awesome watching him play. Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant both did not have great games, but I think there's reason to be optimistic about both of those guys. And then you get into Bo Melton and Tyreek Smith and Derek Young, right? Those are all the draft picks. All pretty positive. So, yeah. Okay, last thing I want to ask. Number one thing, let me give you a choice. Thursday night, the Seahawks repeat the offensive line performance that we saw last week, running and pass protection. The Seahawks coverage is excellent, including a couple of picks, and all of a sudden these guys look like they're going to be a great secondary or could be a great secondary. Or the pass rush is filthy, is getting after the quarterback, 4+ sacks, lots of hits. Of those three things, what would be most encouraging to you?
For me, it's corner.
Corner?
Yeah, that positional value is just so important. I mean, the difference between an elite paid corner or even above average corner, that market is exploding. If either of those guys, either of those rooks could show anything on their rookie deal, it's a huge advantage. Top end corners get 22, 23, $24 million, maybe not 24, but I think maybe 23 now. That's a lot of money. So important position.
Nathan?
Offensive line, I think, just because of how much they've invested there. I would love for the corners to look good for all the reasons that Evan said, but ultimately they're kind of a ragtag bunch there. So if they whiff, not a big deal.
Jeff?
I'm curious how the pass rush looks. Offensive line, I think I saw enough where even if they kind of drop off, I still view optimistic the rest of the season. Corner, I think if the safeties don't play again, I'm not surprised. This is the worst receiving group in the NFL the Bears have. So, and I don't know if they're going to play all their guys. So if they look better, I might be a little skeptical still. But again, I think it's a big learning curve. Really, I'm interested there is Kobe Bryant if he plays nickelback. But I think Woolen, I know he's got an athletic profile, but I think they're going to have to learn how to play. I don't think these guys are all going to be Richard Sherman and just hit the ground running. So even if they struggle again, not worried. Pass rush to me, I think is really repeatable. How does Mafe look? How does Daryl Taylor look? Nwosu didn't really do much, but I thought Alton Robinson looked kind of quietly good. He looked like he lost some weight. He was kind of flying off the ball.
Yep.
So I know, again, the Bears are probably the worst offensive line in the NFL from a talent standpoint. So don't know if it's the best judge, but to me, I want to see if those guys can build off what they did last week because I want to see more from them.
Yeah, I think I'm with Evan on the cornerback side. I like, and I partially because I agree with you, Jeff. I saw enough from the offensive line. I think it's projectable. But yeah, I want to see cornerback play that resembles confidence.
City Jones going to play this week?
He was back in practice today, so don't know. I don't know if he'll get a veteran pass or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play. I don't know that he needs to prove much, but maybe he'll get a series or something like that. All right. If you haven't already, give the show a like, folks. We would greatly appreciate it. Click the subscribe button. Get updates. Click the bell whenever we go live. We are going to be live for the Thursday night game. At least myself, maybe someone else, will find out. So if you enjoyed having some company during the game last week, I will be there again this week. And congrats to one of our patrons who won free tickets to the game this week. We try to give away tickets as often as we can. One of the benefits of being a patron, go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, get immediate access to the Slack channel, And we're also trying to figure out the Ring of Honor dinner. It's looking like it might happen Saturday night. We're trying to nail some details down. Hard to get everyone on the same page, but still room in the Ring of Honor. We'd love to see folks there. So join up there, support the show and all the great causes that we donate to. So with that, I'm going to say goodnight from the Real Hawk Talk crew. I'm Brian Nemhauser at Hawk Blogger with Nathan Ernst at NathanE11, Evan Hill at Evan Hill HB, and Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. We will see you around. Have a good night.